Hello and welcome back to Uncle Venom's Books and Whiskey. I'm Ron Rutstein, also known as Uncle Venom. If you'd like to know the story of how I got that name, go back to the first video and you'll find it there. Today we're going to be talking about Hibiki Harmony and Haruki Murakami. Hibiki Harmony is one of the finest blended whiskeys I think that is available. It is made by Suntory Whiskey, which has been around since 1923. The Japanese love whiskey for some reason. I can't blame them. I love whiskey too. And at one point they decided that they were going to make their own rather than import quite as much. And they've done a very good job with their whiskeys. Suntory Hibiki Harmony. This is from information on the back of the box. Hibiki is the paragon of harmony, launched in 1989 to commemorate Suntory's philosophy of living in harmony with people and nature. I think it certainly does that. Achieving a fine blended whiskey is a true art, possibly as great an art as making a fine whiskey that's a non-blend, a single malt perhaps. Hibiki is a noble blend of numerous malt and grain whiskeys from Suntory's globally acclaimed Yamazaki, Hakusha, and Chita distilleries. These whiskeys are meticulously blended to create a sense of wa, a oneness which unveils a full orchestra of flavors and aroma. Hibiki is embraced as an icon of Japanese luxury from the award-winning House of Suntory Whiskey. Luxury, it may be a luxurious whiskey. It is certainly one of my absolute favorites, and it stands up with the best of the higher end blended scotches that I like. Very nice bottle, very nice presentation. Sometimes you have to ask for it. It's not necessarily on the shelf, but on the back, on maybe the high shelf at the front of a liquor store, where it is in the liquor store that I do most of my business with. It is a little more expensive than you would expect for a blend, but it's well worth the price. You're going to enjoy sipping this whiskey, relaxing with it. Don't drink it like a shot. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the whiskey. It doesn't have a strong aroma. On the box it says the nose is rosemary, mature woodiness and sandalwood, sorry. I get that a little bit, but not strong. It says on the palate, honey-like sweetness, candied orange peel, and white chocolate. I would say that those are apt descriptions, but they're not completely describing the whiskey. The whiskey is so much more complex, and I'm not sure that I could adequately describe it either. Very smooth. You don't need to add water or anything to bring out the flavor. Just enjoy it neat. And I think it will become one of your favorites, I hope, as it is one of mine. It's a mild flavor. It's not something like a strong smoky flavor or a strong peaty flavor. It might be compared to a single malt that's been aged in a sherry cask. The presentation, as you might expect with a fine whiskey, is exquisite. The bottle is quite unique. as is the cork. Seals very nicely. I wanted to pair this whiskey with a novel that is mysterious because I feel that the flavor and the blend has a little bit of mystery in it, a little bit of intrigue. And I decided to go with Murakami. Once I decided to go with Murakami, I had to choose which novel. Originally, I was going to pair 1Q84. It was the first novel that I read by him. It's close to 1,000 pages. It's heavy, and I don't think it has the depth of meaning of some of his other work. So I ended up choosing the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. This is a novel that deals with the past, the present, relationships in the modern world. What do we owe to the past? How do we reconcile ourselves to our respective histories? And how do we face that today in our relationships, and what are our relationships like? The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle is the story of Toru Okada, and I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. He wakes up one morning to find that his wife's cat is missing. And as he begins to search for the cat and go through his morning routine, he discovers that his wife is also missing. This begins the search, or the quest, to find his wife, to put his life back together. Think of yourself perhaps after having gone through a divorce, as many of us have, where we need to put our lives back together. And he's at the point where he doesn't know if he needs to do that. He wants to find his wife, to find out why she left. He has no idea why she left. He has no idea where he is. So he turns to her family, who never approved of him, and is trying to grapple with his relationship and where he's going in his life. Something that many of us go through. But the novel takes him on a journey that forces one to deal with Japan's past, their history in World War II, where they were truly horrific opponents. They did horrible things, as did we. That's what happens in war. War lets out the worst of us rather than the best of us. Some might argue that it brings out the best of us. That would be a long discussion. I think in some cases maybe it does. In many cases it doesn't. And as Okada begins looking for his wife, he's taken on a journey that leads him to a rather bizarre 16-year-old who lives in a home behind their apartment. He meets an elderly war veteran who is trying to grapple with his own past before he dies, and the things that he did and that Japan did and that were done to them. He runs across a psychic prostitute, a mystical woman. It's really hard to describe what she actually is in the novel. Maybe she is the one that's tying it all together. It's a novel about facing one's own past and facing one's collective past. Are we responsible for the sins of our parents, especially the sins that they committed in wartime, where the worst of us gets released? And what do we do going forward? How do we grapple with what we've done? How do we make up for what we've done? And perhaps the first step is understanding what we did. There is a scene that takes place where Okada is trapped in a well, thanks to the 16-year-old girl who removes the ladder as they climb down into it. The well is behind his apartment, and there are a series of houses around this area that could be garden-like, but really isn't. It's just kind of abandoned. And there's a well that originally supplied water to a mysterious house that nobody lives in anymore. And he climbs down this well to see just what is going on. And there's a very powerful meditation on darkness that's central, I think, to the novel. And to discard this meditation is to basically discard the novel. In reading some reviews by some readers online, there are those that got to this point and decided that this is just all gibberish and put the novel aside. It isn't. Murakami is facing up to what the Japanese did. He is leading the protagonist of the story to a level of understanding that goes beyond the superficial. And we really need to process that meditation to understand the novel and what the protagonist is going through. It's one of the most important points in the novel, in my mind, though there are many. Is this a detective novel of a man searching for his wife? Is it a mystical novel about the meaning of life? Is it a historical novel about grappling with one's past and what one has done? It's all of these. As you go through this novel, be prepared for the depth that is there. Do not read this novel superficially. If you're going to read a novel lightly, this is not the novel to read lightly. And Hibiki Harmony is not a whiskey that you're just going to drink a shot of and walk away from. If you do that, you're missing the meaning of both. The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. I highly, highly recommend this novel. I also recommend reading his other works. I am in the process of doing that myself. They are very rich, beautifully written novels. At least I assume so. I'm reading them all, obviously, in translation. My knowledge of Japanese is zero. This gives us a glimpse into a culture. But this novel also would fall into the category of magical realism. And it pushes us to understand the world beyond what we see every day. Here's a book. Here's a glass of whiskey. Do they have more meaning than just a book and a glass of whiskey? Their physical makeup? Or is there more that we are missing to the world that we're living in? I think magical realism opens us up to the possibility that there's a lot more than just the physical reality. And grappling with our own personal history, as well as our collective history, is part of moving on in the spiritual realm. And Murakami's novels, at least these two that I have read so far, definitely take us in that direction. If you enjoy the novels of David Mitchell, I think you've probably read these or are preparing to read these. I highly recommend it. If you've only read Murakami, there's a whole world in the literature of magical realism that is worth reading. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy Hibiki Harmony and enjoy the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. Have a little glass to sip while you're reading. And always remember to drink responsibly, but read irresponsibly. Thank you for joining us. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below to support the channel as we grow. Thank you very much.